Much respect, fam. This is a recording of the Minister's Red Pill Diaries. I'm Minister Nkala, the initiator of the Ministry of Spirituology and director of the Association for Cultural Awareness. And in this recording of our Red Pill Diaries playlist, specifically, we're going to be talking about Kevin Samuels. It should be a little bit over a week now, actually. May 5th, 2022, it was a Thursday, in which even me, I heard the information just in passing. I didn't want to really give myself too much of a focus there. You know, he was an individual who I'd followed a lot of his messages. I had a lot of respect for him as a speaker and the way he used his social media platform to address the conflict between men and women, specifically in the Black community, even though he had, of course, interviewed some Caucasian women on his platform. His real ultimate focus was looking at the dating conflicts that specifically men and women in the dominant melanated people's demographic was actually concerned. A lot of people just didn't pick him up right from when he started in 2015. I came into him actually only 2021 myself, but I'm actually pretty familiar with his content. And he had earlier recordings in which he talked a lot more about men and not necessarily even women. He started to speak about women only maybe in the last 2 years, and then with a few sensational headlines. You know, some individuals, they like to focus only on, you know, some shortened clips of what he actually said without bringing out the whole reality of maybe 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even 1 hour discourses that he had with women who were seeking his advice, essentially. Image consultancy is what he did with his YouTube channel. I mean, from 2015 to 2022, he was able to amass 1.4 million subscribers. You can imagine this. And this is an individual who, from what I was able to research, was making at least $7,000 per week from his YouTube channels, and himself had amassed an estimated wealth of about 1.4 million US dollars. So when he talks about himself as a six-figure value individual, he's not joking. He actually has a premise to establish that rationale and make the statements from the perspective that he does. So hate it or love it, Mr. Samuels was an individual who was qualified and experienced to speak in the dimension that he was, even though some people tried to attack his qualification. You know, they're like, is he a psychologist or a therapist or whatever? You know, I'll be very honest. If a man gives you actual advice and it works, then take it for its value of its benefit. There are people who followed his program and channel who were able to actually repair their relationships. He said there are women who had called him back and said that, you know, their relationships were falling apart, but listening to his advice, they were able to recalibrate themselves in relationship to the men in their lives. And I mean, this is just the positivity he was able to generate with his platform, which made it very strange that when news of his passing away started to circulate, I mean, so many people, not even so many people, but a lot of women who were in the categories that felt disrespected by his blatancy, you know, they rejoiced at his passing away. And that really, I mean, that's toxic. That's the negativity that we're going to really try and unearth and talk about in this recording of Minister's Red Pill Diaries. I want to tear at that. I want to tear at the whole realization that it's created this atmosphere for negativity between Black men and women, such that speakers like Kevin Samuels had that platform for relevance, ultimately, because that's not what actually people are looking at and we should be looking at. And if we start talking about that, then we can actually start to generate a solution to the fact that women will say that they felt offended by the things that he was saying, because fundamentally it comes down to this. If someone is speaking the truth, there is no nice way to tell the truth other than to just tell you the truth. We live in a society where women get gaslighted a lot because men, a lot of men want to sleep with women, and a lot of women have ego. So women just like to be told what they want to hear. Oh, you're beautiful. Oh, you're this and that. Women eat it up. And men who want to take advantage of them, they do. Now, Mr. Samuels was someone who wasn't trying to pursue that egotism of wanting to be charming to the women who called in to be participants in his program. And this, I mean, it alarmed the whole state of femininity. You know, we have a rising matriarchy on the face of this planet with some radical feminist agenda to challenge patriarchy. When Black Lives Matter was actually rising up in 2020 with the murder of George Floyd, they used a lot of anti-patriarchy sentiments. They talked a lot about being cisgender meaning heterosexual relationships, essentially. That was what they had published on their website. And then when it was pointed out, they went back, removed it. Their website looks more public relations friendly now, but that movement in its evolution never was carrying a priority to campaign for civil rights for the Black race and Black people as a whole. It had specific demographics, specifically putting forward women in its feminist angle, and specifically the LGBTQ community, which looks at the rise of women instead wanting to position themselves behind seeking sexual liberation, as opposed to looking back towards in the 1940s, when we know that the feminist movement began to evolve. There was more emphasis on workers' rights, because of World War I and World War II, men had gone off to war, so it created that workers' gap in Western economies, which now brought women now in to fill those roles, and they discovered the working conditions were deplorable for men, but even more deplorable for them. So there were protests, and some pioneers came out demanding improved working conditions for women, and that women should be paid equally what men are paid with the same qualification. And I really strongly believe that women's rights are humans' rights, just like men's rights are humans' rights. And if women did not have proper working conditions to be able to become sustainable as they should be, then that's a violation of their rights. It needed to be the focal objective and mission of the feminist movement. But shifting into a position where they're instead saying that it's because they don't have control of their sexual reproductive health, that this is what is keeping them from being able to raise their economic sustainability, because women, they can get pregnant and for 9 months would not be able to work. You see, that's the logic they tried to bring it in. But now, like I say, the gender orientation issue, and a woman is not a woman, a man is not a man. You see people making jokes that men will be able to get surgery to even give birth. I mean, it's a wacky area, I'll be honest, when you look at a lot of the dynamics behind it. And in that confusion of it being wacky, literally, a lot of Black women who went behind the feminist movement thinking they were going to get a level of empowerment, that's all they got in the end. Women like Angela Davis were they're actually spoken on this issue of how Black women were taken into the feminist movement behind Caucasian women who had their own agenda, which varied from the fact that Black women and Black men were being oppressed by the system of the Caucasian women and the Caucasian men. So a lot of women didn't pay attention to that. And as they've gone behind it thinking they're going to get something for themselves, this is the ultimate end result. An individual like Kevin Samuels, he identified it, and speaking out against it, because there's this level of toxic femininity which is evolved, where women now feel that they are not accountable to anyone. Literally, they want to dismantle patriarchy behind what the organizations of the radical feminists say, but the women also want to maintain the traditional chivalry and benefits that were derived through the system of patriarchy, which acknowledge that, oh yes, it's true, for 9 months you can't work, so let the men instead do all of the heavy labor so that they can also protect you because of it. And that's why the whole notion of women being considered the weaker sex evolved from. But if women now are throwing it away, I'll be very honest like that, I can't stand in their way. All I can do is try to interpret that this is the nature of the situation that evolved, that prompted Mr. Samuels now to begin to actually speak. Because he himself, actually, if you look at his biography, he was from a single parent background. And coming from a single parent background, that he knows the difficulties his mother had to face to sustain him, and also battling cancer. I noted something like that in his biography. He emerged from a struggle where he was able to see the importance of the nuclear center of society as it is, the family, the man and the woman and the child, 1, 2, and 3. You can never disregard the supreme mathematics in your interpretation of reality. 1, 2, and 3, sun, moon, and stars, completion of the universe, completion of the physical cipher. And that's the core for the supreme being Black man. When that reality is fragmentized, then our communities can't evolve. There's no sustainability. And that's what we've been fighting for, if you want to say as early as even 1441, when the Portuguese came onto the continent under authority of the Vatican. Was that Pope Nicholas V? And decided that they could start kidnapping our people. And this is when the violation of our control over our capital started. When you start taking people as slaves, then you're actually depleting the labor of the African continent. When you start invading and colonizing, you're actually now taking and seizing control of the land and the resources. And this is actually what happened to our people from that period of 1441 up until as recent as the 1960s, with desegregation and moves by individuals like Kwame Nkrumah, president of Ghana, to initiate the independence sequence that led to a lot of African states gaining even some degree of independence to have some level of autonomy. So it's real, my people. It's real. It's really, really real. If you want to interpret what Mr. Samuels was speaking on in its depth, there is a political dimension to it, because by dividing the black man and the black woman, now you divide the labor capital. If the black man's not going to play ball, if he demands too much from the system, essentially, then the woman now becomes the easier individual to lure in. And then when she gets lured in under the pretext that, she believes that, like the white woman who divorces her husband and she can get her child support to sustain herself, the black woman somehow was confused into believing that that is a better alternative reality, literally. And she went into that, and this is the conflict now. She yearns for her man, but the system, it dangles the dollar in front of her. And it's even gotten to the point where, sexual liberation all is added to it. Cardi B now has come in, and much respect to the sister. But, we've got her on record with BBC talking about how she actually drugged and robbed men. So this mentality has come in with the music infused into it, and the women up in the club, they shaking their skin, gyrating and everything. It started way back, and even in the 90s. When I go back to the 90s, remember Beyonce came out with "Can You Pay My Bills?" and we had TLC singing "I Don't Want No Scrub," and some brothers tried to say "I Don't Want No Pigeons." That didn't go too far, but Nicki Minaj came in and then iced it up again. And then the new dimension of the way women reason, it's actually vicious and antagonistic to men with this feeling of entitlement now. Movements like Black Lives Matter came through and really dragged a lot of women into positions of leadership in the organization. This actually had its pinnacle in catapulting the election, which ousted Trump, which was really the whole reason that Black Lives Matter was funded for that particular election. I'm told they made about $90 million. And in the background now, we start to hear that, between Alicia Garza and Opal Fumetti and Patrice Cullors, they bought several mansions in Southern California in elite Caucasian neighborhoods. And we had a brother, even Hank Newsom, who was heading the New York branch, who called out his sisters. And he was like, no, we need to get a probe into this, because through the Global Network Foundation, if this is what is being orchestrated, and other individuals and shareholders in this organization, which came forward claiming it was fighting for the rights of black people, civil rights. And then in the end, just in the year following after, black men are still being shot by police. It makes you question what's really going on. Our sisters, they want this power, they get that power. What turns out from it? Yeah, Kamala Harris, she gets into the White House, Yeah, we can say Judge Ketanji Brown is up. But the image that it gives on its side in the media, in the whole context of this toxicity, we have black women saying that black men are not respecting them, that we don't protect them, we turn our backs on them. And they say that we are more inclined to go out of our race. Meanwhile, through all of this energy that they used, claiming they were campaigning for a black man who had been murdered by police, the only political advantage they got out of it were two sisters who actually are married to Caucasian men to get into some political power. That's how the whole lobbying energy works. So, truth of my people is because maybe you don't understand how politics works. So you don't pay attention to the fact that it's just a cross-section of women in the top of these ranks who are using this lower base of women who are not in positions to regulate policy to kind of fund and fuel their political projection. And it gets nasty. It can get nasty to the point that, honestly, if people are really looking at this climate as being very toxic, I think it's with all possibility that, some sisters in the background, maybe attached to an organization or not, could have independently been like, who does Kevin Samuels think he is? I know how some sisters can get in their little groups, and they're doing their hair in the salon, and be like, who does this ninja think he is? You know what I'm saying? And then you never know. You never know. You never know, my people. You never know. So Kevin Samuels passing away now, it really opens up the floodgates for a lot of men to take this realization into consideration. Like I pointed out, you got Cardi B on record.
I had to go straight. I had to go, oh yeah, you want to fuck me? Yeah, let's go to this hotel. And I drug niggas up and I robbed them. That's what I used to do. Nothing was motherfucking happening to me, my nigga, nothing.
We got a lot of things that go down on the record that don't necessarily get into the news headlines. So a lot of people are being speculative. You see this atmosphere. He passes away at last. You start to see how the news came out. It was like Ortensia Alcantara. And the police first spelled it with a C, and it's supposed to be an S. And then behind that S now, people are able to do their research and find out, yes, she's actually a nurse. But I'm like, if she's actually a nurse, this actually seems like an alibi presentation and situation. It's too good. I would love to have my last dying moments with a nurse in the room. Having all possibility that I could have been saved. And that's exactly how it looks. And that's exactly how she presents her statement when she put up her final Instagram before, it's like she was deleting her accounts because all of the flack that's coming back at her. She said something like, it's unbelievable to think I have to clear my name for doing the right thing. So she's saying she was really doing, the message was framed in such a way that if you really go through it, I'm a humble 6-figure woman from the Midwest, no need for a one-night stand. So she's saying that she didn't have a one-night stand. She knew him longer when the official report said that they, I guess, was it in LA? She just met him the night before. It would have been Wednesday, Thursday. They're back in Atlanta. They're knocking the boots. He's complaining of chest pains. He dies. The report is already going out that he supposedly died of a heart attack. Some people are trying to even say maybe cocaine would have been linked to it. They even tried to claim that he faked his death. But lo and behold, we don't have any autopsy report, and that's where our eyes should be. We should be focused there, because the final verdict of the autopsy is actually what's going to determine how this whole situation needs to be looked at, even though it's not going to change the failure and the dynamics of the relationships between black men and black women because of the issues of toxicity that we're not addressing. When the brother said things like, the modern woman is average at best, you have to always look at who is he talking to and in what specific context, and are these things true? That if women are not serious, they have opportunities to have solid relationships before they're 35, but they believe that they can compare with a man. Meanwhile, it's men who are supposed to be actually doing the proposing, according to the whole Judeo-Christian structure of morality in the Western hemisphere of the earth that we follow. Even with the Islamic principle, and definitely in Africa, we know that men are the one who do the proposals to women. So if women want to adopt this mentality of claiming they're empowered and independent, and then they don't want to respect even the basic principles of dignity, then you see that in the long run, men will actually select the women who they feel will demonstrate the best loyalty to them, and then the women who they're able to actually have fun with during that period, reaching up to their own later ages before they select, they generally will know who these women are and not select them. And then these women now, after feeling this feminist logic of feeling empowerment, will be angry that they wanted to use this sexual freedom campaign. But the whole nature of society, it still has certain quirks about accepting whether that is the type of woman that is ideal for particular men of value and substance. Now, I'm not saying that this is my particular perspective. You see, I'm totally naturalist in how I look at relationships between men and women, but I'm assessing clearly that this is how the Judeo-Islamic Christian religious structure of morality has molded individuals to look at their relationships in the West, even though they've come a very long way in liberalizing it to the point that it should normally be a man taking a woman from her father, according to the naturalist principles in the traditional texts that we have, which formulated the idea of the feudal system and giving this authority now to the lords, which were now represented the church before. Now it's evolved into the current system where you go to a court and sign in the civil status registry documents. So, it's all of this evolution and change which has brought men and women now to not respect the actual naturalist principles in society that existed, to guarantee that when they would go into these unions, they would go into them with truth, honesty, and respect for each other. Because that's what fundamentally all of this is. It's not about blaming women or men, because before women started kicking back, obviously men too, the whole Casanova mentality or whatever, it obviously should have hurt the hearts of some. So some women will complain and they'll be like, oh, well, now they're only doing back to men what men did to them. But it can't be do me, I do you, because that is what has now generated and created a situation which has led to this atmosphere in which Mr. Samuels has passed away. And there's this looming now fear and apprehension and suspicion that it may not have been natural as it's being presented. So that's why I'm going to start winding down, my people. Really think about it. You have the atmosphere for something vicious to happen. You have a lot of empowered women on the face of the planet now, not just financially, but even mentally, with the whole empowerment logic of, what a man is, I can bust back. I've seen videos in the social media of girls, straight up talking wild to men twice their size in subways and slapping them. I know some of you have probably seen that video. And these are just some of the symbols and things that when you look and really reflect on it, you're like, wow. You can only wipe your mouth. Will Smith is on stage slapping a man thinking that he's protecting his wife, but his wife in the reports that came after was like, I didn't necessarily send him up on stage to do any of that for me. So my brothers, that's the topic on the table. That's really the topic on the table. We need to really start thinking about it, really. I really feel that modern women cannot destroy patriarchy and still expect the traditional chivalry that they had from the systems that have built up and inspired it. That's just my own reflection. You see, if everyone's going for equality, let's go for equality. And when we talk sexual equality, that means that even if you come into our African society, we've always been polygamous. You see, when faced with this situation, a man has the right now to have additional wives. You see, the whole monogamous concept is what the capitalist system uses to basically herd and control and turn men into slaves for women, and also put them at their beck and in a circular conflict, so that the aristocracy that benefits from this can now shift away from even using race and have a better hold on the world as they're going into this digital era. So I say you got to come back and look how we had our systems and adapt some of our logic and apply it. And if you want to talk sexual freedom, then yes, let the LGBTQ people come out. Free sexuality means that you have a situation where mature adults are consenting. And in a polygamous situation, or even a polyamorous situation or polygynous situation, as they have the various forms of polygamy, you would see that all of the individuals who are involved in this relationship are mature adults and consenting. That is what we talk about when we talk about sexual freedom. It's not raising some specific groups and giving them the right for political play because some particular individuals are trying to get some positions in governance or not. That's manipulating the masses. And we can actually raise our consciousness to that level and see that that's what's going on, but still find what is pure in it as men and women. To see that the trouble is that our unions are being manipulated by the media and the aristocracy, but we still need to make sure that we represent love. Then we can definitely forge a basis of looking at one another using what is nature-based as was done in the past and be able to go forward and channel. So that's where I want to go out if I say I'm going to give a little bit of advice without just laying a lot of complaint about the situation. You see it? Let's look back in. Originally, my brother, when you were taking a woman, you were taking a woman from her father. Keep that in context when you're just looking at a woman like, damn, you want to go holler. That could be somebody's sister, man. That could be your sister. You feel me? That's why even when the brother Kevin Samuels made a certain statement along the lines of how he doesn't feel that high-value men want women with children, I actually had to stay a little bit opposed to that, because in the black community, since we started to go through this conflict with the invasions, we've had situations where our sisters right on the continent, being in the U.S. in the plantations, they didn't have the actual biological fathers of their children in their presence, and now a different man had to step up. And because of this reality, knowing that little shorty is there looking up to another man and needs that balance of the sun, I can't actually side with that idea of thinking that high value men, because then what is the value and representation that we're talking about? You see, if it's a man who values his community to keep it intact, then that's where it's at, my brother. Step up to the plate. So, I mean, we've got a lot to talk on this particular issue, that if we can evolve with it, my people, and stop all this manipulation from the media, then we can start to advance, definitely. So I hope you got the message. I really hope you got the message. That's why I'm going to follow out on this. If you liked it, make sure that you do hit like and share this so that people can get in tune to the Ministry of Spiritology.
5, 6, but I ain't got all of that time. Ooh, I'm out here. That money running